Hi, and welcome to Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we have a super exciting show. Angela Dawn is back with us today. Angela Dawn has been a friend of Fresh Waves since the very beginning when she came to us as a color specialist. And we learned all about colors and the psychological and spiritual aspects of colors and how to incorporate colors into our day. If you'd like to hear that interview and many other interviews with Angela Dawn, go to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio, and you can find all of our past shows there. But today, we are meeting Angela Dawn on the airwaves. She's a personal and spiritual development specialist creating conscious connections. And if you were listening to the show last week, you would have heard Angela talking about dating over 40. And today we're just going to talk about her new endeavors and what she's been doing since the last time we talked to her. So good morning, Angela, and welcome to Fresh Waves.
Oh, good morning, Brenda. Thank you for having me again. It's always a pleasure to speak with you on the radio. So thank you.
Oh, you're
excited
quite
to be
welcome.
Here.
Oh, we're excited to have you. So tell us what you've been doing lately. I know you started doing this dating over 40. How's that going, and how are the connections coming together?
Oh, thank you so much. It's been such an exciting kind of last year. I've been really focused on still doing color psychology in all my work, as I always will and always do because I love it, but really bringing it down to helping people search for conscious connections. So definitely when we are over 40, we've gone through the divorce, the separation, sometimes we're widows. It's tough to be single and get back out there. And so it's really about helping people work on themselves, as I've always done, as well as understand how to attract a healthy relationship. So it's been a lot of fun, and lots has happened from my meetup group to my courses reevaluating and down, and little flirty cards. I got so much we can talk about, Brenda. Where do you want to start?
Well, how about we talk about your meetup group? Tell us, for those who don't know, what is meetup?
So Meetup, if you go to meetup.com, it is an amazing platform where if you just want to meet up with people, you can for tons of different reasons. If you just like going hiking, you can go in and see in your area, maybe if there's any hiking meetups where you can, someone's organizing it. You meet at a special location and people come and gather. They meet each other and you go on a hike. There's meetups for playing cards. There's meetups. Boy, I've been dancing meetups. I've been to lots of different ones. And my meetup is for conscious singles who are usually over 40, but we have people, younger as well, to learn online, as well as having some chit chat meet and greets for people around the world, as well as in-person get-togethers. So we're meeting other singles going through the same thing.
Now you say conscious singles as opposed to what, unconscious singles?
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of dating meetup sites out there. And, to each their own, everybody's on their journey. But not everyone wants to dive in and do some work on themselves and actually, I call it soul work, work that's going to help them become, I'm going to say, better people, more authentic. Dive into their own personal development so that when they do attract someone in their life, they're attracting a healthy relationship. There's no blame. There's no judgment. There's no drama. You're not looking to be ghosted anymore or breadcrumbed and all these things they talk about. We're actually at a place where we know what we want. We know what we don't want. And we want to attract according to, finding a healthy relationship, which is why it's a conscious connection. Someone who's doing the work. And so it has been amazing. I'm now up to over 2,700 members in just a little over a year of people who are coming together on a regular every month, either online, or in person, to meet other people doing work on themselves and who are wanting to just find really good, healthy friendships and relationships. And it's beautiful, and it's amazing how many people are out there searching for the same thing.
Wow, that's fantastic. And it lends itself to a more true and honest profile, first of all. I mean, I know a lot of people who really butter up their profiles to the point where I think, I've known you for 40 years and that's not you. What are you talking about? Or,
right.
The old real estate agents, when they used to put on their cards their pictures, and then you meet them in real life and they're 30 years older than their current picture, and you think, really? Is this
Right.
deceiving or what? And why would you do that? And I think in the dating world, that happens all the time.
Unfortunately, it does. But there are things you can do. Like I've actually developed a Market Your Magic online course where I can work with you and help you find that true, authentic self. And how do you write a profile accordingly? And what pictures work for you? I've had people actually find their matches because we have, upped their game, so to speak, online. And also just make people aware of how to get involved in things like online dating. It's scary for a lot of people. And it makes sense. So again, it's really just helping people through the process, but also, getting them to work on themselves at the same time. But yeah, 100%. I agree with you.
It's a funny world because people always know that the hardest thing to do is to critique yourself. And in so much as you don't want to say, well, I don't like scrambled eggs, and I really don't like going out for breakfast, and, snakes gross me out, and I don't like people who pick their fingernails at the dinner table. Nobody needs to know those details. That's not what you're putting in your profile. So how are you profiling yourself in this day and age to not come across as something more than superhuman, but also to not come across as something that nobody would ever want to bother getting to know?
True. And you just hit on something that's so important that people don't realize, which is we don't need to know, and we don't talk about the things we don't want when we are out there. When you actually are wanting a conscious connection, you speak about something from an emotionally healthy level, from a spiritual level, from what it is you're wanting to attract, but not, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. That just shows you have a lot of wounds and you're not really trusting of getting somebody into your life. So, being able to do the work where you've stopped thinking about what you don't want and you're really trying to attract what you do want. And that's a bit of a shift and a bit different. So if someone is out there looking for a partner, whether online or even just say a first date, and all the person does is talk about what they don't want, they're not really at a place where they're ready to have a conscious leveled type of connection. They're just still working through maybe some wounds. And that's something that's, can be a red flag to a lot of people. So just a heads up out there. If you're somebody who does that, or you're dating and you hear that person constantly speak about what they don't want instead of what they do, it shows a lot of where the growth is at.
That's an interesting tip. Now, what about the concept of opposites attracting? You don't have to have everything in common with the person that you're going to go and have a coffee with. As a matter of fact, sometimes that's boring.
Exactly. I mean, to me, I want to say that's kind of old school to think about things like that, to be honest. I don't think that part matters anymore. I think it really matters on just, again, realizing who's in alignment with you. And, and what your interests are and what you want to do, and even your personality type, which I just did a course on that, which I'll be having again. When you get to know yourself at a really good, deep level, then you'll start attracting people that match that and will be in alignment with that. So, whether it's an opposite or a same, it's going to be either for you or not for you. And the more you know about yourself, the more you'll be able to find that out much quicker than getting into relationships that last probably too long. And you should have been out a little bit sooner, So it's really getting to know yourself so well that you're more open to understanding what's possible out there and being more aware quicker. I don't know if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense.
It makes a little bit of sense. It leads to the concept of self-awareness and self-confidence.
Most definitely. I think awareness is always the key. Like you and I have talked about this before. I always talk about the 3 A's: awareness, acknowledgement, and action. And awareness is half the battle when you're working on, shifting something in your life. You want to be aware of what that is. And then you need to acknowledge it, meaning what part do I play in this? How is it for me? What am I learning from this? And then once you've got that acknowledgement, then you can take action to actually do something about it and create a shift. So I always think of everything we move through as the 3 A's: the awareness, acknowledgement, and action. And so awareness is half the battle. Acknowledgement's like the next 25%. So it really only takes 25% more for you to take action. And so that could be like, okay, I am in this place. I am single now. I have done some work on myself. Okay, I'm ready to date again. So the acknowledgement is, yeah, I'm going to do this. how do I want to do this? What's this going to look like? And the action is, okay, I'm going to go out to maybe a networking meeting, or I'm going to go to that dinner and dance charity auction, or maybe go online and take the action to actually make some movement. But once you follow those 3 A's, people will realize it's not that much more difficult to finally take some action to make a change.
Now, what about the laws of attraction? I mean, there are so many books and so much science and social science and things based on this law of attraction. You're either attracted to somebody or you're not. And what are you putting out into the universe to attract the person that you want, which I guess are 2 completely different things. But, you can develop a relationship online with somebody and then you go out for coffee and you meet them and there's just no attraction there whatsoever.
Oh, I had that happen to me. I'll tell you a quick little story because it was interesting. I went on eHarmony, where if anyone knows the dating sites, you pay to be on eHarmony. This was a few years back. And I ended up meeting this lovely gentleman from the States. And for probably 6 months, we spoke consistently and on video. So we got to see each other. We chatted. We got along famously. Lovely, lovely man. Then he decided he was going to fly in to Toronto for my birthday. So as soon as he got off the plane and he was walking towards me and we hugged, there was no spark, nothing. It was like we had been friends for years, but I felt nothing and he felt nothing. Granted, we then had a week to spend together. But we did, and we toured around, and I showed him the city, and we did lots of things together, and he took me out for my birthday, and we had a great time. Then, funny enough, he flew back home, and I am not kidding you. Within a month, he met the person that he ended up marrying, and she lived 5 minutes away from him.
Wow, that's so funny.
And we're still friends to this day. So sometimes that will happen, where maybe you're aligned in lots of great ways, but not the way that's meant to be for a romantic relationship, and that's okay, too. I think partly even with my meetup, I tell people, find connections. It doesn't mean they're going to be the one. You're not on meetup, at least my meetup to date. You're there to meet people, to understand how people communicate, to get friendships happening, to get conversations happening so that not only are you meeting others, but you're also learning about yourself at the same time. And then if there's a spark somewhere, great. I always joke then and, invite me to the wedding. But really, we're here to understand ourselves more and get to understand others more. And that's a beautiful thing. So you're not always going to meet the person, the one. Mm-hmm. And here's something too, Brenda, that I've mentioned before, and for any of the listeners, we can redefine what relationships look like at this age and stage of the game. It doesn't have to be, oh, I want to meet someone and I'm going to move in and we're going to get married and white picket fence. It's not like that anymore. The majority of the people that I am meeting through my meetup say that they don't even know if they want to live with anyone anymore. They love their own space. They love their own routine. They love their own time, but they want companionship. So it's really also getting to a place to know that we have the right and the power to make our own decisions on what we want this new relationship to look like. Maybe it's not living together anymore. Maybe it's, hey, you are together. You are in a relationship, but you go back to your own dwellings and you sleep in your own bed. I don't know, but I'm definitely seeing as things move on that most people are kind of redefining what a relationship looks like now that we've been through a big chunk of life. And it doesn't look like what we thought it looked like in our 20s. And I think that's really cool. That's something I've also just discovered myself in holding these meetups and working with so many people that are single over 40. So things are going to be a little bit different, I think, than they were when we were single and in our 20s, for example.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know yourself better and you know what you like. And, I know a woman who met a guy that she was very attracted to, and they dated for quite a while, and they were, seeing each other once or twice a week, and they went on a vacation together and stuff. And then one day, she was saying that she couldn't see him because she was going to spend the day doing her yard work and cutting the lawn and laying the flower beds and stuff. And he said, well, I'll cut the lawn for you. And she said it was like a snap reaction that she tried to smooth it over later, but she said, I don't want you to cut my lawn. I'm very capable of cutting my lawn. Thank you very much. Take care of your own house. I'll take care of mine. And 3 years later, they're still dating. They're very, very happy together. And neither one has moved into the other's house. Yet her best friend, who moved in with someone right away, 3 years later is now away from that guy. And she said, next time I feel like moving in with someone, somebody tell me no.
You never know. And we're also, like, you also just touched on something so important when she said, well, no, I've got my own lawn. I can cut my own lawn. We also are, this is another whole big topic, but we've become in this world very independent women because we've had to, and we've learned a lot of masculine skills. And so the other thing I'm noticing is a lot of the times men can be a little bit scared on how to approach women who are very strong and independent. And women are also at a place where we've forgotten how to be vulnerable, feminine, and let our guard down. So again, that could be another whole conversation, but it's been an interesting piece to also watch unfold on having people be able to allow someone into their life again. Especially when, as someone myself who's been divorced for 14 years, being, able to say, yes, I'd love for you to cut my lawn, meaning, wow, I will take that help and it will ease so much of the work I've been doing. So it's also women, I think, if we're wanting to attract man into our life, we have to be able to let our guard down a little bit and find that femininity and that vulnerability again, because that's something I'm noticing is very strong. And for men to also just, take their time to know that we're trying to adjust in this. And again, that could be another whole big topic, but it's just little ahas that I've noticed in this last year and a half of really focusing in this niche. And I'm one of them. I can say I'm the same. I do it all, but I'm willing to find someone who is willing to cut my lawn. That would be lovely. Mm-hmm. Maybe cook dinner at the same time. That'd be lovely. Well, so anyway, just a thought, but again, something different to think about.
Yeah, I know. There's nothing, I think, sexier than a man with a vacuum cleaner.
There we go. Now we're talking.
But you know what? I think it's very passé now, the knight in shining armor who's going to come along and rescue us from all of our woes. I was actually speaking with a man who had 7 or 8 possible women that he could date. And he was on one of the big dating sites. And he said he looked at one who had 5 kids or 4 kids and recently separated. And he said the alarm bells went off. I don't want to take care of someone. I'm so far past that. I just want someone to hang out with and spend quality time with. And he thought this one's not going to be it. So of his 7, he wrote her off the list right away. And then he went through all the other ones, met them for coffee. He always met them for coffee first because he said dinner was far too much right off the bat. And so he would meet them for coffee. And the others, nobody just floated his boat. And then after a dry spell where he just didn't really connect with anyone online, all of a sudden he thought, well, I wonder about that number 7. I mean, there was a lot of things I liked about her profile. Let's see where she's at now. But I don't want to take on her baggage, and I don't want to help her through her divorce and separation. Anyway, they met for coffee and hit it off like you wouldn't believe. They have tons of similar interests. They really hit it off. And so they went out for dinner and again had a fabulous time. And so he said, I would like to meet you where we can just talk. So they met at a park where they were kind of sitting on a park bench and watching whatever was happening in the park. And he said to her, I don't want to be mean and I don't want to sound callous, but I do not want to take on your baggage. I really like you. I'm not a lawyer. I can't help you with your divorce, and I don't want to. I don't want to sit for hours at night while you cry because your husband's or ex-husband is being unreasonable. That is your baggage to carry. I've got my own, but I think together without that baggage, we get along really well. And she wasn't very happy about that, and they kind of didn't see each other for a while, but then she reached out and said, you know what, I've got things under control and I think we should go biking or something. And it ended up that they're like 8 years later still together and extremely happy.
But look at him. That's beautiful. He knew who he was. He knew what he wanted. He set boundaries. He knew what he would and would not be able to accept, and he honored that, and he voiced it. He communicated that off the bat with love, by the sounds of it, and left, that in a place that could be open, but also honoring himself. And that, to me, is conscious. So that's a really beautiful thing. And it worked out in the long run, which is amazing. That's a great story.
And I heard from the guys, because he's very much a guy's guy, and he was talking to the other men and said, oh, yeah, I ended up helping her with her divorce. Of course I did. She just needed a bit of help here and there with some paperwork and stuff. But she never laid it on him too thick, and she just gave him what she knew that he could handle, I guess.
Great.
And it all worked out really well. So good for him.
Beautiful. Beautiful. But, that's nice to hear.
Angela, for the one story you hear that's so good like that, there are 45 more that aren't very good. And it seems to me that it's mostly women. Well, I am one, so I talk to women. But do you even have any men in your group, in your meetup group?
Tons.
Really?
Yes. And for the men out there that are wanting to find women that are doing their work and are healthy, this is the type of thing you want to do, is to come to these, online meetings, come to the chit-chat nights, if you're in person, come to the in-person one and meet these people. Because there's always going to be more women than men. It just seems to be that way. However, we have some great men. And I've actually had a few that have started relationships and moved off away from the meetup because they've now got partners. But definitely some great, great people. I've now made friends with people all around the States, different men around the States. And the really nice thing, Brenda, with what I hear over and over again is I think it's a common theme of just knowing you're not alone. So many of us think, oh, I'm going through this myself. This is hard. I'm going through it alone. And once you're doing something like the Chit Chat meetup where, I put everyone in breakout rooms with a special, question prompt, and they're meeting people, they realize they come back and go, oh my gosh, I'm not alone in this. And it's not to go talk about their ex. That's my only rule is, this is about moving forward from today on. It's not about past. Doesn't mean you don't have a past, but it means we're not getting together to bitch and complain. Pardon my language, we're getting together to say, okay, here's where I'm at now, and here's how I move forward. And if not, ask questions about how do I move forward? How do I get through this? But it's phenomenal how many people say, I didn't realize I'm not alone. And that in itself is just so healing and so liberating. And I think that's so many of us at this age, I live in a place where, I'm not far from you. Most people are married. They're married with their 2.5 kids, they're in their 80s. And so there's not a lot of single men, in the area that I'm in. So I always have to, go down to the city or do something else. So sometimes I could feel very alone, but knowing that there's other people going through the exact same thing and developing even friendships with those people have helped tremendously. So if anyone's listening and they are going through this, just know you're not alone. There's tons of people, men and women, going through the exact same thing.
Does it end up being that there's some element of the old matchmaker in that you're talking to someone online and he may not be your guy, but he says, you know what, I have a friend that you would really like. Does
sure,
that?
Why not? You never know. You never know how you're going to meet someone. There's so many ways to meet someone. And many more ways than just the typical online stuff. I think we just became very much an online society because of social media, but there's lots of ways. And, that's why I love the meetup. You can take courses, go to the farmer's market. Do you know how many people are at the farmer's market and how easy it is to see if somebody is walking around alone, right? It's easy to start up conversations because you're in kind of a place that feels like a safe place that you can talk about. Look how red these tomatoes are. Can you believe the strawberries this year are so delicious? It might sound crazy, but it's an easy conversation to start. People are a little bit more slower paced. They might be just having a coffee and walking around. And there's so many places to meet people. So many. Yeah, you just have to get off the couch. You're not going to meet them. They're not going to knock on your front door. You got to get out and actually make an effort, take action, right?
Yep. Home Depot on a Saturday morning.
Ooh. Yeah.
More men than you'll ever want to meet in one day.
Yes, that is a good place.
Well, after the last time we spoke, I was in the grocery store and I was looking around at all these men buying groceries, and it was a weekday, late afternoon. So maybe it was an on the way home from work thing or whatever. And I thought, how would a single woman figure out which men were single? And then I saw the man kind of two down from me, picking up meat, looking at it, putting it back, picking it up, looking at it, putting it back. And I thought to myself, him.
Yeah.
And then I started laughing, and I was standing there laughing. And I thought, people are going to think I'm absolutely nuts, but whatever. Well, we have to take our first little break here on Fresh Waves. We're speaking this morning with Angela Dawn. She is a personal and spiritual development specialist. We've got lots more coming up, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, we're back on Fresh Waves. I'm your host, Bren Masson. Today we're speaking with Angela Dawn. Angela has been a regular guest on Fresh Waves for years. She's a personal and spiritual development specialist, and she's creating conscious connections. And next time you come up with one of those CCCs, you got to make it so it's not such a tongue twister. Say that fast 3 times on a Sunday morning.
It made you read it. I love it.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about these flirty cards that you've come up with.
Okay, so you were just talking about how do you know, if someone's single at a grocery store. And this is what happened was one of the meetups we said, do we still know how to flirt over 40? And so that was a question that I proposed, and we had a big discussion around it. And I realized most of us don't. We don't know. We're scared. We're scared of rejection. The men were worried about being creepy. They were worried because of the Me Too movement. Women were like, I don't know if I want to approach. What happens if he turns me down? So for a while, I've had this idea in my head. And after that, discussion, I was like, now's the time. So I invented flirty cards. So for a package of 6, there's 6 different miniature cards that could fit into the palm of your hands that have one little saying on them, such as, no pressure, just possibility, or this is me being brave, or I also have, you caught my attention. And then when you flip over the card, it says, here's my name and number. And the whole point was, do you remember when we were younger and we did like candygrams at school, right? Mm-hmm. We paid 25 cents to send a message. We are a generation that likes something tangible, that likes a little note. We used to pass notes. So this is like passing a little note. So it's very simple to be, you caught my attention. Here's my name and number. So you could be watching someone at the grocery store. You could just go over and slide this to that person. Or, I was talking to a waitress who thought these were great, and she bought them because she's like, sometimes there's this gentleman that comes into the restaurant. She says, with his bill, I could just give him one of these and walk away. And if they call, they call. And if they don't, they don't. But the point is you're making an effort. You're taking action. So the person who receives these little cards, which are so cute, is definitely going to feel honored, right? Because they're going to be like, oh my gosh, you thought big enough of me to come over and give me something that says, I don't usually do this, but here's my name and number. And chances are they're going to call. And everyone I've talked to says, oh my goodness, if someone gives me this, I would totally call them, whether they were like someone I was attracted to or not, because that took courage. And then for whether it's men or women, it's an easy way for us to have some fun. So even if you're at a place where there's loud music, we're trying to say, what's your name? Like, what? Or, we're trying to fiddle with our phones like we're younger nowadays. We're trying to put our numbers in our phones. This is just like, here's my name and number. And you can put it in your wallet. It's small. You could shake someone's hand and discreetly pass them over. So these little flirty cards are $10 for 6. And I've been selling them all over from the States to Canada. And I love them. I think it's a great way to create some fun. I think flirting can be fun and should be. It gives somebody a beautiful compliment. You're taking action. And hey, you just might get someone giving you a phone call. So it's kind of a fun little thing. So they're called flirty cards, and you can find them on my website.
That's so cool.
They're cute. I love them.
Well, it is an interesting subject, the subject of flirting. I find that the young people especially. I was watching a young girl who was going through her dating app and delete. And I said, why are you deleting all those guys? And she said, if their opening line is, hey, or sup, yeah, then I've got nothing to say to them. If they can't think of anything more creative than sup, then I'm not interested. So right. I don't even bother. I said, but what about a second chance? What about if the guy's shy? She said, we're online. It's not like I'm standing in front of him and he gets all tied in knots. If that's your opening line, you're done. So
right.
I guess there's always been an art to flirting. There are some men who just have it. There are some women who, when you analyze them, they're not really that attractive, but they've got the art of flirting down to the T. They just know how to hold themselves, carry themselves, how to compliment someone else, how to, for a man right now with the U2 movement, I understand that it can be a little tricky, but you can still be very complimentary of another person without being gross.
100%. 100%. And I do think compliments are a really beautiful way to start opening the door, because worst comes to worst, you haven't done anything except give a beautiful compliment. Like if you were to if a man was to walk up to a woman, let's say they're at the farmer's market, and he says, wow, I love that scarf you're wearing. It's a beautiful color. If she's open and also a little bit more consciously aware, she's going to be like, wow, thank you very much. That's nice of you. And either she'll continue the conversation if she's interested or won't, right? You can walk away, but you can also start the conversation. If worse comes to worse and they think, oh, who is this person? You haven't done anything wrong except give a nice compliment. And so I think that's always a good way to start. Again, there's lots of ways to flirt for sure, but it's something that you can do to start the process. And then with the flirty cards, you can either hand somebody one after a conversation has started, or if, again, you're at a place where there's loud music, or maybe it's just like, again, you're at a restaurant and you thought the waiter was really nice, you leave it on the table. If they call, they call. If they don't, they don't. You have nothing to lose. You got to shoot your shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I think you could run all kinds of courses on how to flirt without being grotesque about it.
Well, we have on Meetup. So if you join the Conscious Connections Meetup page, then definitely. We have something every single month, and we've talked about flirting multiple times. We have everything from like boundaries and core values to, we've just had interesting discussions around anything so simple. Now I can't even think, but anything so simple. It's been a year and a half of having a topic every single month that has big conversation around it. So yeah, it's really about, again, helping ourselves develop as well as understanding how to get out there and actually, maneuver through this singlehood and finding relationships that actually have a bit more awareness to them. So again, we attract healthy relationships. And It's beautiful. Again, you're going to meet people through things like this too, right? So I tell people every time I have a meetup online, I'm like, listen, if somebody comments or someone you think is interesting, or there's the chat, you can go into the chat and say, hey, just be respectful, be open, but say, hey, I think your answer was really cool, or I love the fact. I had two people that were both from Texas on one of my calls. And when they both found out they were from Texas, they ended up chatting and connecting. So you never know. I was on a New York meetup and I met a guy from Toronto, and then he ended up coming out to one of our meetups with us. You just never know how you're going to meet someone. You just have to be open. But the flirty cards give you an in, right? It's a way to shoot your shot, do it in a fun way, do it in a safe way without feeling creepy. And again, nobody can feel creepy when you get a cute little card that says something fun with your name and number on it. And you can choose. If you're receiving it, you can choose. Am I going to call this person or aren't I? But that's up to you at that point. But at least the person gave it a shot. So, and how many times have we been somewhere we're like, oh, wow, that person was like really cool and I love their personality, or I love their energy and they're so handsome or good looking. And then you're like, oh, I left. Will I ever see them again? Where this way it's like, I'm going to leave a flirty card on the table, or I'm going to, pass it to them on the way out. And maybe the connection will continue. Because how many times do we walk away? So, and we're older. Again, I'm going to say we're not 20 anymore. We're not meeting people the same way. We're not in university with thousands of people around us at all times. So, it's about shooting your shot, giving it a try.
Well, I think in a world where, I mean, there's a lot of movies where they just happen to meet and there's sparks and it's the best thing ever. And those movies, as vomit-inducing as I find them, are so popular. The Women's Network is loaded with them. But so there's obviously a market for it. There's obviously a pull for that, a draw for that kind of accidental meeting. But there's also, if you are single, that impression of almost desperateness that some people have, that they're just desperately looking for someone else. And I don't think that that's a turn on, whether they're male or female.
Well, again, I'm going to go back to this is why I deal with conscious connections. And I've had people say, why do you have that conscious word there? It's because of this reason. When you're a conscious person trying to find a healthy relationship, you know from that word, it means someone who's been working on themselves. If you're in a place where you're wounded and desperate, you're not my group. You're not part of the group per se of my group, because my group isn't from a place of desperation. My group is conscious, meaning, hey, we're here. This is what life gave us. This is what we're dealing with. Here's how we're moving forward. If anyone's got tools and tips, then great. And so there's a lot of wounded people out there, and that's okay. We all have wounds. We all go through things. But the stages of healing, where are you at and what help do you need? And sometimes you need someone like myself. I do one-on-ones. You can call me. We can have a session. I've got programs. I have a Heal Your Heart 2-hour session where I work with you with 7 different exercises to help. There's people out there like myself who are there to support you and help you grow. And my suggestion is always work on yourself first. Get as healed as you can first. Self-love first. And then you will, that law of attraction, then you will attract a healthy partner. You will attract someone who's more aligned. But if you're out there wounded and you're hoping to heal that hole in your heart, and you're not in a good place with your ex, and you're complaining, you're judging, you're blaming, then you're going to attract somebody who's along that same energy level. And chances are it's not going to be healthy for you. So I'm a big one on please work on yourself first, which is what I've always done. Being in this industry since 1996, I've always been about supporting growth, personal growth, and healing and getting to know yourself. Now I'm just really focused on the single market because honestly, I'm one of them. And I see that was a market that was really, really needing that support. And on top of it, wanting to know they're not alone and finding ways to connect. And I've always been about conscious connections. It's always connections into yourself, the spiritual side within, as well as without, right? With the people around you. So it's always been about conscious connections. It's just, yeah. And even if you are married, people can still see me for courses and such and one-on-ones. I still see all my clients, but my marketing is just shifted to let a lot of the people who are single know that they're not alone, and also how to work on themselves and shoot their shot.
Right.
So,
and then,
yeah.
Is there something to be said for how you communicate with a person that you've been communicating online, either online or in person? Once you get past the what's your name, what's your favorite color, then what kinds of questions are you asking a person? Is it, well, do you like golf? Because like I said earlier, when the opposites attract, someone can be a total golf fanatic and their partner may be a bike rider, and one can go golfing on Saturday morning and the other can go biking on Saturday morning, and I'll meet you for lunch.
So here's something I love to do, because we do this in our chit chat night when we have a breakout room chit chat night. Is I have 5 different prompts. 4 of them we have. How I always say, one thing's for physical, one's for mental, one emotional, one spiritual. So I'm like, take a look at how you can ask questions that touch on all those levels. So for the physical, it could just be, oh, do you like to bike ride? But I would say something like, what's one simple thing you enjoy doing that helps you feel really good in your body? Right? If someone asked me that, dancing, I would talk about my ecstatic dances. I would talk about how I need movement and I need my music. Mentally, you could say, what's something you've learned about yourself in the year that surprised you? Oh, that person has to look a little bit deeper now, right? So now we're asking questions that aren't just surface. You could say emotionally, what helps you feel safe and comfortable to open up to someone? So now you're also asking a question, knowing that the answer is going to help you understand how to better communicate with that person and what they need from you to feel safe in order to emotionally connect. And then you say, okay, what's a spiritual question I could ask? I'm a very spiritual type person, so I might say, well, what gives your life a real sense of meaning? What's happening in your life, or what have you done in the past that has given you a real sense of meaning? Wow. If someone asked me that, I could talk about how I went to Kenya and I drove through a tiny little village called Mitimingi, and I fell in love with the fact that these people were trying to fix potholes in the road so they could get tips. And then I came home and I actually raised money for them and I bought them tools so that they could fix their little village. Imagine hearing stories that are going to get you diving deeper than just the surface. This is where conscious connections come in. And so those are the type of things that through our meetup, we always end up talking about. And you can go onto my website and read past blogs as well. And we talk about these things. But those are the type of questions to get people thinking deeper, not just the small surface stuff. And again, you do need some surface stuff. But at the same time, once you're like, okay, you got check. You do this, and this. Great. Now let's get a little bit deeper. So don't forget to go into the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and ask some questions that will have somebody dive in. And if they can answer it, great. If they can't, that's also a good indication on, how much growth have they done? And how well do they know themselves? I know for me, I want to find someone who knows themselves, right? So that's some examples, if that helps.
Yeah, it does. It's interesting too, because I guess, if you are feeling good about yourself and you know yourself, that helps you to be able to deal with people around you in an honest way, I think.
100%. Well, and, with my color personality course that we just dove into, we focused on the 7 color personalities. And I always have seminars running for like $10. And then I have like in-depth, full day programs. And when you start to know your color personality, then you understand how you communicate, what your issues are to overcome, what your trauma response is, positive traits you need to work on. And then when you start to understand the other colors, like I'm someone who I can go in now and go, oh, that person's a green. What does that mean? It's not to put people in a label or a box. It says, oh, I know that they come from the heart. I know that they're emotionally connected. They want to tell stories about their family, or here's how they communicate. Here's how their trauma would be maybe manifesting. And I can take a look at how to have a healthier relationship. So the more I can help others understand themselves and the people around them, then the healthier we're going to be just as a whole, which is beautiful. And then if we want to actually attract a soulmate, then at least we're doing it from a place of health and not wounds. And that's my key for people.
Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about, of the damsel in distress or the man in distress, and the woman comes along to, clean his clothes and clean up his apartment and help him be the best that he can be. And I've seen so many relationships like that where once she's finished cleaning up his space, he's got the ability now to go and meet someone else.
Well, again, they're not at a healthy place to begin with.
Exactly. Neither one.
Exactly. So if the patterns continue and we keep having the same patterns happen, then that's definitely when you want to reach out and work with someone like myself to find out, what are those patterns? Where do they come from? How do we clear them? What do we do to shift them? So you don't want to go into another relationship with the same patterns. But we've all been separated, divorced, something for a reason. There's things happening. Now's our time to get to know who we are and really grow. I heard a line the other day, which was really powerful, that said, chances are you're not going to be single for a long period out of your whole lifetime. You're going to end up finding someone else and being in a relationship. So take advantage of your single time while you can. Learn everything you can about yourself. Do everything that makes you happy. Work through all those wounds and emotional upsets. But also, you want to go dance, go dance. You want to go on a trip, go on a trip. Do what you need to do, because the chances of you doing it alone are going to be a very short period of time in the grand scheme of life. And I really love that. So if anyone out there is single, instead of automatically looking for someone to have that companionship with, which so many people do, work on yourself. Figure out what you love, what you don't, what you want, what works, what doesn't. When I first divorced, I had never lived on my own. I was horrified to live on my own. I was so lonely and it was terrible. Now, my space, my alone time is sacred. I have learned to love it. Doesn't mean I won't allow somebody in, because I definitely will now. But I also learned a lot about myself. So if somebody out there is listening and they're newly single, I would say just know it's not going to be forever. So take the time you got now to really enjoy. Go really find out what it is you love and do the work and be the better person, so that when you attract the next person, you're attracting a healthier relationship, and one that's going to hopefully be a lifetime.
You keep saying work, do the work. Mm-hmm. And basically what you're talking about is, kind of finding out who you are, what you like, what you don't like, being confident in your own skin. Why does that have to be work? It sounds to me like a golden opportunity to thrive.
I wish it was. I call it soul work. Honestly, I don't think it's easy for a lot of people to want to look at the wounds and look at how life is happening for them, not to them. And so when we take a look at what part did I play in that, what was this meaning about for me, healing old traumas, healing old wounds, really taking a look at those. So it's tough work, Brenda. We know that, right? From being in places in our life where we've done that type of work. If it was easy, I'd be a multimillionaire by now. But it's, the self-help industry is $100 billion a year industry for a reason. It is something that everyone is searching for. We're all here to learn about ourselves, and it does take work. It can be painful. However, what people don't realize is that the beauty on the other side is phenomenal. So if you're willing to dive in, even though it might be painful, it might be some times of feeling what you didn't want to feel and healing what you didn't even know needed healed. But the other side is phenomenal. And the freedom and the self-love, and the vibrant radiance that you can have after doing that work is so profound. But a lot of people just don't want to put their toe in the water because they would rather stay in the comfort of the old patterns. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what it is it's scary. It's scary to look at sometimes what we need to do to heal, and to do that work. So I do call it work. I call it soul work because it is. It's not easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it and we'd all be living this happy, healthy place. There wouldn't be the craziness that we see. But, it's you have to make a choice. You have to know that you are worthy enough to do this for yourself, and that your self-love matters. Your self-love and self-worth matters more than anything. And once you get that, then the world opens up for so much beauty. But you have to get through the tough part first. Well, and that's okay.
You often hear of the person who's been married 4 times and they're on their 5th, and it's the same guy just wearing a different sweatshirt.
You got it.
And that says something about who they are trying to attract. And again, that they haven't dealt with the first ex, let alone the 3rd or 4th.
It's very true. It's very true. They're patterns, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not easy. It's not easy, I think, when we're in a place of pain to take a look at what that pain is telling us and what the messages are. But when we start to do that, we can learn a lot and the shifts can happen. We can start to choose differently. Otherwise, we just stay, it's like a hamster on a wheel, you just keep on going around and around and around. And so, So, I mean, hopefully I help people get those ahas and, talking about things like boundaries and core values to flirting. It's all ways to learn a little bit more about yourself and to say, oh, I want people to go away with, okay, I never looked at it like that before. I got some thinking to do, or let me process that. Then that makes me happy because that makes me go, okay, we've opened a door and they're processing, they're thinking now, they're evaluating, they're looking at it. And then when I see them as clients, it makes me so happy to hear, what they're working on and how it's starting to move forward, or give them the tools they need. Because a lot of times we just don't know the tools that we need. Like, we're not taught this in school, right? So it gives us a chance to say, there's actual exercises I can do and tips I can take and tools I can have to get through these tough times, which is also why I love color psychology and has always been a part of my life, because that's a phenomenal tool that people don't realize. So yeah, it is work. It is work, but you have to be worth it to do the work, right? And I always think, well, I'm worth it. It's me. It's my life. So I feel worthy enough to do that, to make myself a better person. But you're going to be attracting better people in your life, and not just relationships, friendships, coworkers, opportunities. Everything starts to up the game a little bit. Really fast, I described this the other day to a client. I said, if we only listened to one radio station and it was the same radio station over and over and over again, we'd never know that there's 20 other radio stations we could listen to. And the more that you learn about yourself, then you might be, I'm going to try this radio station. Well, this is good music too. And then the more we expand, then we're trying to find partners that, as we expand, they are also expanded. So I want to find someone who listens to 20 different radio stations, because if I go to find somebody and he only listens to one, I'm not going to have a very long relationship with this person, because it's not very diversified. It's not very, I won't be able to explore very much. It's going to be kind of null and void pretty soon. So the patterns can stick in one radio station. You need to get out of that radio station. Funny, we're on the radio, so I'm using that example.
I love it.
But the whole point is just like this, right? Who knew that there was amazing interviews on Fresh Waves? And now that someone knows this, they're going to be like, I'm going to listen to these more often. This just opened my mind to a new radio station. And that's the coolness.
Yeah. Well, I can see from what you're saying that there are even people who are in relationships, who've been in relationships for 30 and 40 years now, because that's the age that we're getting into. They could benefit from a lot of this authentic self stuff.
Agreed. And by all means, so I tell people my website's marketing might be focused on the single world. But when you get looking at the courses I offer and the one-on-one sessions I do, it's open to anybody that wants to just work on themselves.
And then when you work on yourself and you find through self-discovery that you're closer to your authentic self than you have been for years, people start seeing you differently. You start seeing the world differently. And then you attract different people who you may not have attracted before. And it's not that they're right for you, for the partner for the rest of your life, but they enrich your lives by friendships and relationships that otherwise you wouldn't have attracted because you weren't your authentic self.
You nailed it. Exactly. I'm very blessed that everybody in my life right now, I love. I have the best core friends. I have people that I am excited to spend time with, people I can trust, people I share my life with, people that I have fun with. And they're nobody is toxic. They're all amazing, conscious people. And I'm blessed, but I've also brought myself to a place where I've done as much work as I can on myself. I'm always learning more. Don't get me wrong, but you attract, and I've attracted just phenomenal people in my life. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to say when so many people are still struggling with toxic people. And again, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that, yes, there are shifts that can come. Things can be healed and moved, but you're right. 100%, Brenda. You work on yourself, and the next thing you know, you're attracting a different kind of person. You're attracting someone who says, I also like Fresh Waves. And then they go, wow, me too. And then you can have different conversations.
And people relate to you in a different way because you're presenting yourself in a different way.
Exactly. Authentically.
Well,
yeah, finding your real true self is a real beautiful thing. And again, it does take work, but it's probably some of the best work I could say you could ever do in this lifetime.
Yeah, and I think, there's all, like you were saying, the self-help industry, there's so many books on all of these things. But if you're sitting by yourself reading books all the time and you're not getting out and doing anything about it, or testing out what you've read in the book by going and meeting people, and if you're too afraid to go to the coffee shop, then join a club, a special interest club, or why don't you check out Angela's meetup group? Because it sounds like those guys are a lot of fun too.
It is. We have a lot of fun. And like I said, we have 3 events per month. So there's always, and that's just me. There's a lot of meetups out there, but it's, there's lots happening. Facebook always shows events. There's tons going on. I just read about a great gluten-free event happening in Toronto, and I'm gluten-free. Guess what? I'm going to go.
Yeah, why not? At the very least, you'll find a new recipe.
You got it. So you just got to, again, get off the couch and actually take that action.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but you're not alone. I will say you're not alone.
I love the concept, and obviously it's really taking off because you have so many people in the group now, and I wish you the best of luck. When you have anything on that's new and exciting or that you've come to a major revelation about, you just let us know, because we'd love to have you back as a guest on Fresh Waves.
I love being on Fresh Waves. I know I've been a guest now for quite a few years, and I have to admit, thank you, Brenda, and I absolutely love it. It's always so much fun, and the conversations, I like how they're so organic, and we never know exactly what's going to come out, but we always have the best conversation. So thank you for that.
So how do people find you when they're looking for your meetup? Do they go to meetup.com, or is there /Angela?
You know what? The best thing to do is go to my website, which is heavenandearth.ca. And is A-N-D, so heavenandearth.ca. When you get to Heaven and Earth, you'll see everything there, but there's also a menu button that says Start Here. And Start Here, there's a color quiz you can do for free, which is a lot of fun. You'll see all the events that I have happening. You'll also see a button for my meetup. And that's a great place to start. And then you can also look at ways to work with me and all the rest. But that's a great way to just say, okay. And if you are single and you join my newsletter, you'll also get a PDF of the top 10 things to ask yourself after a first date. So you'll know whether this is something you want to continue or not. So there's lots of great things that you can do. So I'd say go to heavenandearth.ca first and foremost, and then you'll connect to my meetup from there.
All right. That sounds great. Well, thanks for joining us today. And to all the listeners out there, if you'd like to hear this podcast again or other podcasts, go to our YouTube channel, Fresh Waves Radio, and you'll find all of our previous shows there. Have a great day, everyone. We'll catch you again next time on Fresh Waves.